I just want to ask you, first of all, have I entered a meeting room that is for graduates within the government jobs or?
Yep, you
Okay.
absolutely have.
Let's say, for example, if I have a background in a different industry, other than, sorry, within private sector, and I want to get into government positions, do I still cater towards a graduate industry, or do I just can get into graduate roles regardless of sort of my background?
So how long has it been since you finished your degree?
Well, I kind of have experience for about 9 years or so as a designer in various industries, private sector. I recently worked on a project. Then I got made redundant. So then I went back to uni and completed the remaining subjects for my degree.
Oh,
So yeah, and then now I'm kind of looking into all positions. I know government positions require qualifications to be
so what
uploaded,
degree
correct?
is it?
Industrial design.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of, and especially in the generalist and the more kind of technical spaces, there's a whole bunch of grad programs. As long as you, and you would absolutely be able to apply to any of them, as long as your degree is relevant up to 5 years, depending on which stream it is, you're very welcome to apply to any and all. And through applying through a whole of government stream, you can essentially apply once for a whole bunch of different departments or agencies. So totally up
Mm-hmm.
to you where you end up doing it, but the generalist sounds super applicable. And then I'm sure as well the data and digital might work as well.
Data and digital. Okay. Yeah, I was looking into the digital. So is digital sort of something that caters to engineering roles or?
So there's a full list on the website of which exactly degrees apply for it. It's really broad.
Okay. All right then. Thank you.
Awesome. So in terms of apply to Australian government, so the Australian government, we've got a question there about applying directly to agencies you're specifically interested in. Absolutely, do it. The whole of government gives you a pathway into a whole bunch of different agencies and kind of allows you to connect for your learning and development and networking across the agencies as well. But if you're particularly interested in something like Defence or DFAT, go for life and apply to their program specifically as well. And then in terms of multiple streams, you absolutely can apply separately for that as well. So you could apply for HR, you apply for generalist, you could apply for data, depending on what your degree is, go for your life, apply for as many of them as you want that you're relevant to. Does that help, guys? Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Am I able to now just go into the digital seminar? Do I just leave here and go to the next one or?
So this is the, after we've had both webinars, this is the whole kind of, you can come chat to the stream specifically. You can go chat to all of the agencies that are participating in each of the whole of Gov streams for the rest of the next 90 minutes. So feel free to jump and talk to whoever you want.
Nice. Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
So can you apply for both the generalist program and specific agencies in that program? You absolutely can. In terms of enhancing your chances, there's no guarantee. If you write a good application, you write a good application, and that will enhance your chances. So put some time and effort into where you actually want to apply to and go for it. Nothing says you have to put all your eggs in one basket, but as long as you're committing your time and effort to the right things, then yeah, you'll enhance your chances. Citizenship is a solid requirement. It's a requirement across Australian government. So it's not something that is negotiable.
Of the programs that we recruit to,
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Melissa.
Look, I'm a bit confused. I have finished, so I've got my transcripts. I've completed successfully all my course last month, and I'm
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a long journey.
Yeah, always is.
So I've graduated in Bachelor of Social Science.
Cool.
Major in child and community and sub-major in criminology and criminal justice. As I'm sure a lot of newly graduates are a bit confused with, that's why I've joined this sort of a little stream to see where I guess this could take me. I'm just applying now as we speak. to the one link.
Awesome.
Does that give me a chance for all the government departments to just like pick and choose, I guess, who is suitable for what department? Is that how it works?
Pretty much. So essentially, are you talking about the generalist?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So essentially, doing all the assessing, one process to be considered for multiple different agencies at the end. So instead of like in the past having to apply for 30 different agencies 30 different times and do the process for every single one of them, which would be very different as well, you apply once for the generalist. And at the end of it, there's a preferencing kind of thing that goes on where the agency preferences you and you preference where you want to be and back and forth. Megan, do you have any more detail on that kind of who goes where?
Sorry, what was that last question? Any tips?
Yeah, so we were just chatting about, Melissa had a question about kind of where you end up at the end and if you get a say who you end up with.
Sure. Yep. Sorry, I heard half of it and my technology has not been very kind to me today. So apologies. Yes.
It's always the way.
It's always the way. So I guess when it comes to getting closer to the end of the assessment process, that's where we'd be looking at candidates being able to provide preferences for the agencies that are participating through the generalist stream. And as much as possible, when it comes to allocation of candidates, of suitable candidates through to that next step, which is the offers stage, we will be trying to match up candidates' preferences to those agencies they're interested in so that those agencies are able to review the candidate and where they feel confident to make that offer of a graduate program. Does that help, Melissa? Was that the question you're asking?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much. I'm currently, I've been sent a link from the previous stream I was in. It's called the 2022 APS HR Graduate Program. Is that the right one that I'm applying for?
So,
Michael, do you want to jump in?
Yes.
So
sorry,
that one must be HR stream. There we go, but there's Michael.
Yes, sorry for the delay there. So yes, I'm Michael Francis. I'm the representative for the APS HR professional stream. So if you've got the link there to either apshrgrads.com.au or to our website, apsjobs.gov.au, that will allow you to apply for any of the 23 agencies that we're recruiting for. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. So I am applying for the right link. Okay, great.
Excellent.
So there's two, Melissa. There's the HR one and there's the generalist one. So I'm just going to stick in the chat the kind of homepage for everything. So hopefully, and if anyone else who's currently in the video chat has any questions about that as well, hopefully you can go exploring on that page and find some answers if you're a bit shy to ask questions. But Melissa, I think there's another question for you. Give me one hot second.
Sure.
Yes, agriculture does have their own booth, so you can go jump in and talk to them specifically about their kind of stuff. Citizens who have a Bachelor of Arts completed more than 5 years ago, what's the limit in terms of eligibility, Megan, for years out of graduating the program?
Well, I guess that's the eligibility is the 5 years. So you'll have to excuse my very poor maths.
That's why I asked you, because I didn't want to have to work it out.
So I guess that if we're looking at candidates having completed their degree by the end of this year, we're going back the 5 years, which I would presume you would have to have completed your degree by 31 December 2016. Is that right? 5 years?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So if you've completed your degree no later than that 31 December, that'll be the 2016, that'll be the 5 years.
Yep.
Hi, this is Guamin. I'm the one who just posted the question about 5 years criteria. So I am actually doing the third degree in STEM. So I got a degree in arts, the bachelor in arts, and the master's in science. And those degrees were completed more than 5 years ago. So my question is, as a graduate of graduate diploma in STEAM this year, am I eligible to apply for the 4 streams I mentioned in my questions?
So I would just check with the agency specifically, because while the graduate diploma is technically a higher education level than a degree, sometimes the eligibility is very strict to a degree level. That's something that emailing the actual stream leads will probably answer for you more concretely than on a little Zoom chat, if that makes sense. I would also say, by the sounds of it, you've got a fair amount of experience. So it might be worth looking at direct entry at a higher level into the APS if you're interested. You don't have to enter through a graduate program just because you've done a graduate program, but I mean, it is a great way to enter.
Yes, you said that I could email them. How can I find out?
So I've just put the link back into the chat for everyone. So if you jump on there and you scroll to the streams that you're interested in, you'll essentially get to all the info that you'll be able to kind of nitpick and go through to contact who you need to, and also to find the application links, Melissa, for generalist stuff. So you jump into that and then you find the generalist stream about halfway down the page. You might have to click through a little scrolly, but you should be able to find it there.
Okay.
Let me know if you still don't find it. I can send you a direct link as well.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Are there any questions in the chat that I've missed? Please feel free to just jump on and chat to us.
There was one there that I just wanted to respond to, the classic, how many roles and where are they question. I figure we're going to get that several times, so let's just go over it now. So for the HR grad program, we have 23 participating agencies across all sectors of the APS, from the very small with the Communications and Media Authority and the Criminal Intelligence Commission, all the way to the very large, Defence, where the wonderful Isabel is, Tax, where the not so wonderful I am, and then Services Australia, Home Affairs. So we're recruiting between 1 and 6 roles for each of those agencies. So if you do the math on that, well, you can work that out yourself. So we are recruiting a number of roles in Canberra, Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne for HR grads, and also in Geelong if you're interested in working for the NDIA. The actual number of roles won't be determined until we see how many viable candidates we've got at the end of the recruitment process in late May or early June. So a minimum of 1 for each of the 23 roles, maximum, don't know. It depends how many good eggs we get through the recruitment process.
Hopefully that helps. And we can go through the other streams that are currently here as well, if everyone's interested in finding out the number of roles. I'm sure everyone is.
Yeah, I can talk to the data stream.
Yeah, go for it.
So we're also recruiting for 23 agencies, and we'll be looking to fill approximately 180 roles. And those roles will be located in all capital cities, including Geelong, Newcastle, and possibly Townsville.
Ooh. And the other thing to know, everyone who's currently in the chat, is that across the board, the Australian government will normally cover relocation costs. So if you end up working somewhere that's not your home, you're not going to be out of pocket for it. So it's not, you're not investing anything upfront to move. It's all taken care of.
Yeah, sure. I can talk to the Economist stream as well. Outside of Treasury, we have 40 vacancies that have been identified across a range of different departments. Your larger departments such as your ATO and your Department of Home Affairs are incorporated in that, and some of your smaller agencies as well. If we do incorporate Treasury's Economist stream as well, we'd probably be looking at about 65 vacancies at the moment. So we aren't as large as the other streams as such, but we do have a specialist skill set. I suppose we're not a generalist or anything like that. We do have to have an economics minor or major. Sorry, the camera is here and the mute button is here, so it's just not I'm just going to try it.
All good. Megan, do you want to chat about how many roles are in the generalist at the moment?
Yeah, look, similar, I guess, across the board with the other streams, that we just don't really know until, closer to the end of the assessment process. But we are looking at approximately 14 participating agencies through the generalist stream that will be taking candidates. But I can also say that at the end of the assessment process and when some offers have been made, that the merit pool will be opened up to the wider APS, which can bring a lot more positions available once all of the agencies go through their recruitment processes, their merit pools. So while you may not receive what I would say a first round offer, there's certainly opportunities for other offers leading up to the end of the year, and even sometimes at the beginning of the new year. Some agencies certainly do continue to recruit graduates right up to the commencement of their graduate program. So if you aren't in that group of first round offers, there's still opportunities to be made offers throughout. But we are looking at, as I said, about 14 agencies participating. But the numbers are really difficult to provide at this moment. Each agency is recruiting different. Yeah, so there's certain numbers. Some are recruiting for their whole graduate cohort, and some are quite small. But we're certainly trying to make sure that every agency participates through this process and gets an opportunity to get some really great candidates.
Totally. I think that's one of the really great things. Sorry, I might just quickly explain what merit lists are so that we're not kind of being super APS-y to people who aren't in it yet.
I was just about to say that,
yeah. One of the things that you learn if you do end up moving to Canberra and joining the Australian government is that we have a whole lingo of our own. And one of those is merit lists. So in the Australian government, because we all kind of serve the same purpose of serving the Australian community, if we do recruitment processes, we will share merit lists. So a merit list is essentially a list of people that we've decided could do this kind of job, and that is applied across the whole of government. So at the end of all of these processes, there's essentially a big bucket of people who we've decided are great for the Australian government, but maybe didn't get the first offer or didn't fit in their background to exactly what was the role that was being offered wherever they were. So that merit list, although you might only have however many roles to start with, can be shared anytime someone asks for it, up to a year out of it being advertised. So when you apply to a generalist or a HR or an economist or a data, if someone comes along and taps us on the shoulder and goes, hey, I know you guys have a really great list of candidates who've done your generalist application and generalist grad program assessment. Can we have some? The answer is yes. And then they get to pick who they want off that as well. So you it's a lot more than it can initially seem. And a merit list is an awesome place to be, even if you don't end up with the job at the very first round of it. So don't be discouraged if you end up on a merit list, please. While we chat back and forth, I have some questions about the generalist program for you, Megan, but I might just preface this by saying that if you're looking to chat about the actual job content across any of these streams, we have specific booths for each of the people that are participating that are organised by the stream as well. So if you scroll down the homepage for the event and you look at the generalist stream, you can click through and chat to every single agency about the actual kind of roles that they have in that generalist field or data or economist, and get it from the people who actually do that work and not us high level kind of guys. So might just preface with that, but I think we did have a question about what the generalist program consists of. If you wanted to grab that, Megan.
Yeah, sure. And I guess that's the beauty of the generalist stream, is that it's so broad. I couldn't give you a specific example of what your day would look like, because in all of the agencies, they're all going to be very different. But essentially, I guess when you look at the generalist as a whole, it's about working on public policy programs and projects that do contribute to the lives of everyday Australians. You certainly can pop into the booths for all of those participating agencies. Some of those do include obviously the Department of Finance. We are certainly here to have a chat with you. But some of the other ones, Department of Defence, Australian Public Service Commission, We've got Department of Industry, Prime Minister and Cabinet. So there's quite a range. The National Indigenous Australians Agency, the National Disability Insurance Agency. So there's a lot that the generalist stream covers. That's why we look for candidates with a breadth of disciplines. We're not just after one specific degree, and the work that you will be doing is so broad and varied every day. It's really just about, I guess, getting an overall skill set and something different, that you're not focusing on one particular qualification or a specific knowledge that you might have through your degree, if that makes sense. Lost my words.
It absolutely does. No, it absolutely does, Megan. And I think it's worth knowing that the generalist is a great place to start if you don't really know what you want to do with your degree or what you can do with your degree. The economist is obviously super pinpointed, and the people who love doing that kind of stuff are going to end up there. But if you're like me and you did a performance studies and gender studies degree, who knows what you're going to do with that? The generalist pathway is a great way to start with that. And so is the HR pathway if you've got some kind of a business or people focus in there as well. I might just quickly mention that there are 2 streams for digital technology kind of focused people as well, because I've seen a couple of questions up there in the chat about it. There's the digital stream and the data stream. So both of them are very broad but have different focuses. So data, I might get the data stream to chat about it a little bit, but digital is very, if you've got a passion and an interest in technology and digital, that's 100% where you should be applying, and you can apply to more than one, but it's very broad and they work with a lot of agencies as well. Might get you to chat through what the data stream does for tech kind of background people.
Yeah, sure. So the data stream's really happy to accept applications from people who have done any type of degree, but particularly if you've had some subjects with data, or you're just really passionate about data and you've had some experience with it. So any degree though would be suitable.
Awesome.
Just on the back of that, talking about the HR program, because there was a question in the chat about what kind of qualifications we're looking for on behalf of the 23 partner agencies for the HR grad program. So we have not quite a broader net as the generalists or the other data streams, but we have roughly half a dozen qualifications that we would consider, which is obviously HR and HR management, as well as anyone who has studied business, commerce, management, or psychology, as long as when we review your academic transcript, there is an appropriate number of HR units in terms of organisational study, HR metrics, analytics, things along those lines. So if you do fall into one of those categories, you can get more information at apshrgrads.com.au, or if you'd like to, please do apply, and then we'll review your transcript probably in mid-April after the Easter break, as part of determining who will progress further in the application process.
And just for clarity's sake, update in 2022. So you don't need to have actually finished your degree until the end of this year. You need to be able to start in the beginning of next year. So absolutely applying your final year. That's kind of the game plan, is get you straight into work if you want to. I might get the streams to go around and kind of chat through what would make someone stand out in an application to them. I might broadly say that in most cases, having a clear passion for where you're applying to, so in this case, the Australian government, will really make you stand out above everyone else. So if there's something that, if you're driven by making a difference to the rest of Australian society or anything like that, make sure that you can articulate that in your selection criteria. So I might get Michael from Human Resources stream to application process for someone looking at the HR stream.
Yes, definitely. So this is the second year we've run this application process. We did run it last year for the grads that have just started in the last month, and that's given us some good insight into what makes a candidate stand out in terms of experience. So we don't have any requirements in terms of grade point average or academic achievement, aside from either being on track to complete or having completed a degree in one of those half a dozen areas that I mentioned previously. But we will look highly upon internships and relevant, HR and adjacent work, either parallel or prior to your tertiary study, because those are the experiences that we'll be asking you to reflect on as part of your assessment process if you make it to the panel interview. We'd also encourage candidates to get their head around, where the broader HR agenda is heading in the APS. And that means things like looking at the APS review, which was published in late 2019. And you can find a copy of that at apsc.gov.au. And that outlines some information about the establishment of the HR professional stream and the critical role of HR in terms of driving transformation across the entire sector. And certainly looking at the events of last year, HR played a very critical role last year in driving so many radical and agile changes in terms of the adoption of widespread working from home across the APS, management of personal leave for people that were at risk or had contracted COVID, all these conversations about how the whole nature of work changed and how that disrupted the entire employment framework for 147,000 and change public servants was a real moment for HR last year, and the ripples of that will no doubt be felt for many years to come. So it definitely is the most exciting time if you have a passion for HR, org design, L&D, recruitment, org development, to get on board with the HR professional stream.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Please.
Does it matter in terms of experience? Would one candidate be, be given high chances if they did have prior experience within the field?
There are many stages to the application process, and a final outcome of suitability will take all those factors into consideration. So that would take in for the HR program, the results of your initial online interview to those 5 questions that I think I might have mentioned in the previous session, how well you perform at assessment centre, and also we'll ask you about your relevant experience in the panel interview as part of the assessment centre. So it's by no means a guarantee, and certainly we saw people that had and didn't have existing HR professional experience be successful last year. This is targeted as an entry-level program, so by no means do you have to have gone out and done, a year of unpaid internships to be at the top of the pile, as long as you can link your professional experiences into a HR context or your experiences as a student into a HR context to show how you would apply your skills, regardless of where you have acquired them, to the role when we meet with you in that virtual panel interview in mid to late May.
Great, thank you very much.
No worries.
And say that there's no point discounting as well any of those skills or attributes you've picked up as part-time or casual work during university. So a lot of those, you have to give examples of teamwork or negotiation or communication skills. A lot of those things can be demonstrated through having your Macca's part-time job or whatever it is. There's no requirement for your examples and responses to selection criteria or interview questions to be professional within whatever field you're doing, as long as you can demonstrate, if your strongest answer and response is demonstrated through your babysitting example, you're going to get marks for that. So it's about giving yourself the best chance and using your experiences, be they in professional internships or part-time jobs or volunteering experience. It's always worth giving yourself the best chance and pulling out every part of what you do to be able to talk about your attributes really eloquently.
Great, thank you so much.
All good. Megan, what stands out in an application to you? What are your kind of top hints and tips?
Yeah, sure. I was, thanks, Isabel. I was actually just going to quickly just double check, bringing up our application. So really, what stands out for generalist stream graduates is I would have to say a little bit of research into the Australian Public Service. The question that is asked in the application, and I'm just going to bring that up so I can say, is why do you want to work in the Australian Public Service? That's a really important, I guess, question to answer to ensure that you have an understanding of what your role might be in the public service or what the Australian Public Service does. And then what's your motivation for wanting to work in the public service or within the generalist stream? As I said before, the generalist stream takes many disciplines, degree disciplines, so you don't necessarily have to focus on one particular degree. It's more about your desire to be part of, and dare I say, that bigger picture. And what it is that we do in the Australian Public Service. Each agency has their own priorities, has their own agendas, has their own projects and policies and that kind of thing. But it's being able to pull together why you want to tell your story. Tell us what it is that has motivated you to apply, knowing that our graduates apply for multiple graduate programs. How can you stand out? And by being able to look at the capabilities we're assessing and put something into your response about your motivation, about the APS, in 500 words or less of what that might be, that's what's going to stand you out from someone who may have just responded saying that they really would like to work within the public service to get a job to start. Michael said it's an entry-level program, and that it is, and there's lots of learning in the generalist stream within the agencies, but having some kind of understanding will help you to get through the assessment process. And each stage is slightly different.
I was just going to say your purpose and your drive for joining the Australian Public Service doesn't have to be insanely deep and meaningful either. It could literally be that you don't want to work for a for-profit. And the reason for that is because money isn't your motivator or whatever it is, or if you're driven to serve in whatever your skill background is to the Australians in whatever that, like with a performance studies degree, I was like, I would rather not make rich people richer. I would rather make the Australian society better for other people. So that's kind of, it doesn't have to be a whole deep, meaningful thing. Can be as high level as that, but it does make a difference if you can actually articulate that in a process.
That's right. Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add, Megan?
No, I think you're right. But it really helps if you can, even if you can relay something back to your understanding of what's going on or what you've learned, or a lot of our candidates do have family within the APS, and what is it that's driven them to understand that? It's really about telling your story of why you would like to be in the Australian Public Service in a generalist role.
Yeah. I might grab the data stream. Do you have any kind of hints and tips for people applying to your stream?
Yeah, sure. So for the data stream, we have sort of two main sections to the application that are really important. So the first is responding to a data related question. So there we're looking for some information basically on why you want to work with data. So what interests you, what have you done previously with data? And using the STAR method, so that's situation, task, actions, results. So what have you done that proves that you're sort of interested in working with data? The other section is a 10-question multiple choice section where you can find all the answers on the ABS website. So responding to that really well just sort of shows that you have those strong data skills, which is what we're really looking for. And like I said before, it doesn't matter what your degree was. You could come from economics, econometrics, social sciences, all types of degrees really, but just showing that those data skills is really important. We're also looking for people with great communication skills, so written, verbal, presentation, interpersonal skills, so building rapport with others, building networks, being able to have respect for diversity, research skills, analytical and thinking skills, and again, that commitment to the APS values. So being impartial, committed to service, accountable, respectful, and ethical.
Yeah, absolutely. I may just jump in as well and flag that it may sound a bit ridiculous, but it's always worth reading your application out loud. There's a lot of grammatical stuff that when you're putting everything on your page from your brain, it just seems normal to you until you try and say it out loud, and it just completely changes the actual how it's read. So read your applications out loud is my quick hint and tip. Economist, do you have hints and tips?
So again, yes, we do. So just building on what everyone else has said, outside of your standard, look at your STAR method, look at the actual department you're interested in applying for. All of the websites, the departmental websites they're full of a range of information. So don't just go to the careers section, I'm going to apply for this job. Yes, there is your APS values, etc., but go and have a look at what they've done. So we've got departments that have specifically impacted over 68% of the legislation that's gone through government last year. 68% is massive. It's quite a large amount. Look at that process and see for us maybe where you think an economics perspective would be inputted in. Most of the legislation that does go through has to run through some sort of economist specific role, but prior to getting there, just to make sure that things are feasible, not only for the department itself, but for the Australian public. So I think the key things for us that we are looking for is outside of your tertiary qualifications, and we do review sort of where you're up to and what your transcript does look like. We're really interested in seeing the diverse expertise that you have. So whether it is through professional experiences such as an internship or something along those lines. It may even be your commitment to specific committees in the university, or what members you're sitting on, or where your memberships do align to. The way that we do our applications for Economist Stream is we do just ask for a 400-word pitch in addition to your CV. And we do want to know how basically you're going to fit into these specific departments. So yes, we are assuming that everyone who does apply has the right skill set and who has the right qualifications, but we want to know when you're in the department, not only how are you going to contribute to your specific role, because there are rotations with a graduate program, but what else can you bring to the department? Are you looking at joining a diversity group? Are you aligned to the APS values? Have you ever had any code of conduct issues? It's those sort of things that we'd be really interested in seeing, specifically around your diversity engagements as well.
That's awesome to hear, and I think that's great for anyone who does come from any kind of a diverse background, to hear that the APS is actively looking for people who are passionate about that across. A question about taking notes into an interview, my default is yes, you absolutely can, and I would encourage that. There's no point disadvantaging yourself. Take notes in 100%. But it might be worth, if you feel a bit iffy about it, it might be worth shooting an email before you start an interview to the people hosting it to just make sure that they are cool with that. I'm sure they will be. But
just
yeah.
I wouldn't try and hide them either. It's okay to say, hey, I'm quite nervous. I've got these notes, and have some really substantial examples that maybe justify your application or your pitch. That's okay. I personally do that when I go for an interview, because I get quite nervous and my words get jumbled, and I know I want to talk about situation A and instead I talk about situation X. So it's okay to go, hey, I'm quite nervous in this particular process. I've just jotted down some things. Is it okay if I have it in front of me? The majority of panels, and I can only speak for ours, of course, but the majority of ours will say yes and actually appreciate that you have pre-thought about or anticipated what we are looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And the same goes for defence as well, which is where my home agency is. So anytime that you are kind of like, hey, and like, feel free to literally be like, hey, this is really daunting for me. I'm going to do what I can to make myself comfortable. Breathe out, bring a whole bottle of water with you, whatever it is, your notes, do what you can to make yourself comfortable throughout the whole process. No one at any point ever wants you to fail. Everyone's trying to get you to get these jobs at the end, and everyone wants you to succeed. So please rest assured that everyone is trying to get the best out of you, and no one is ever trying to trick you.
I'd also echo that to say that at least for the HR stream, and I think most of the streams, we are doing virtual interviews this year as we did last year. So that means that you've got the comfort of connecting in a place where you feel comfortable to be your best, whether that is, home or another location. For the HR program, we'll forward you a link either to MS Teams or Zoom, depending on which technology platform we go for this year. And you can do that from, theoretically anywhere in the world, as long as you present appropriately. I remember interviewing one candidate last year who didn't mind admitting that he was, dressed for business above the waist. Below the waist, you didn't want to know. So I think the freedom of having that virtual interview and not having to fly to Canberra for an interview or, be in a, high stress environment with some people that you feel maybe there's a power imbalance with, just doing it all in the same way that we're all talking now, I think is a much more open and user-friendly environment. But I did want to add one more thing, specifically talking about accessibility or how we would accommodate people of disability through the interview and assessment process, because I don't think anyone's spoken about that before. And certainly in the HR space, we are very passionate about inclusivity across the entire APS, across all 200 and something departments and 147,000 people. If you feel that there needs to be accommodations made for either a physical, personality, cognitive disability at any stage in the HR grant application process, there is an email address on our website that you can use to get in contact with us, and we'll have a conversation about what we call reasonable adjustment in the APS, which is essentially having a one-to-one dialogue with you about how we can customise the assessment process, whether that is adaptive technology, whether that is more time, whether that is additional preparation, to make sure that we can get the best out of you. We acknowledge that it's very important in the HR space that we are proactive and championing inclusivity across the APS. So if you have any questions about that in regards to the HR program, and I hope I'm speaking for the other stream leads when I say this, please get in contact with us, because we want to create the best environment to get the best out of you in all those selection processes.
Yep, that absolutely goes for every single stream as well. If you feel comfortable disclosing any kind of disability that you have, please do. We're all trying to help you through the process, and any kind of reasonable adjustments that can be made will be made. So all you got to do is flag it for us, and regardless of where you're applying to, there absolutely will be something that can be done for you. So please let us know if you feel comfortable. Let us know. In terms of overseas degrees, they need to be recognised by Australian institutions to be eligible in most cases. And as long as it's 5 years out for the eligibility, that degree is fine. Michael, I think I've got another one about the HR stream for you. Very popular today.
I think that was a location question about roles in the West. Regrettably, we're not recruiting for any Perth-based roles this year. The cities we are recruiting in are Canberra, Geelong, Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne. But as Isabel said, or you may not have been in the conversation previously, most partner agencies do fully fund relocation. So, and there's an extensive network of alumni grads and also incoming grads, just to help make that transition to Canberra life a little bit easier and help you make your way through that first Canberra winter, which, especially if you're coming from Perth, will probably be a little bit of an adjustment for you. So unfortunately, no roles based specifically in Perth in the HR program this year, but please do apply, and your agency, if you're found successful, would work with you on a full relocation package. That's how I got to Canberra. I'm from Adelaide originally. My wife works in Department of Defence, and we had a fully funded relocation from Adelaide to Canberra a few years back. So I can definitely speak from personal experience about how they just took great care of bringing us all, me, my wife, our kids, the cat, the dog, all to Canberra, and more or less covered the whole thing. So it's a very flexible and very well-funded process to make sure we can get the best people in the best roles. Just regrettably, most of those roles are based in Canberra.
I also got completely relocated from Sydney to Canberra by Defence, and I have zero intention on ever moving back to Sydney. I now go there and I'm like, there are too many humans in this space. I want to be able to be outside and see trees. So it's one of those, I don't intend to go back. And it's worth noting that when you do join a graduate program, you join with a community that's kind of inbuilt that are also doing that grad program. So you're never kind of on your own and by yourself. There's always a whole bunch of grads who are moving at the same time who are all also looking for accommodation and trying to make friends and going to all the social events. There's the social network of graduates, which is called SNOG in Canberra, and they do events and galas and all that kind of stuff all year round, and they go to the snow. So there's always kind of a bit of a social network built in there for you. Canberra isn't as daunting as it can seem from a Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Canberra, Perth kind of perspective. It's not that bad, I promise. There's a question about technology and design opportunities in the HR program. There's definitely technology opportunities in the data and digital streams. I think it'd be totally worth looking at those for you, Bree. But again, HR might have something for you. Michael?
So we haven't seen a lot of people from, I guess, data and STEM backgrounds apply for HR last year or this year. But we are open to anyone as long as when we review your academic transcript, there is evidence of HR at adjacent studies. So it's hard to answer that question specifically without knowing the exact ins and outs of, what you've done with your university studies over the last 3, 4, 5, 7 years, what have you. But your degree doesn't have to be, I guess, badged as a HR degree. We will ask you to submit a copy of your most recent transcript, regardless of whether you have already graduated or are in your final year. We'll manually review every application's transcript in the back end of April. And based on that decision and looking at what you have studied rather than necessarily what the name of your qualification is how we would determine whether that's eligible or not for the HR program.
Just a question, sorry.
Of course, Mel.
Would it be beneficial
Go for
for graduates to be applying for other graduate programs within the other departments? So, for example, I think I've applied for a defence graduate program prior to this coming to this meeting. So, would that would this conflict with anything, or like what happened?
I'll have a crack at that first. We know the reality is that, especially in the current climate, people will apply for multiple processes. And I think that the research that was done by the Australian Association of Graduate Employers suggests that the average grad will apply for between 6 and 8 programs to try and maximise their possibility of getting picked up. They're not, at least in the ones that I'm aware of in the HR grad space, they're not mutually exclusive. So it is theoretically possible that you could apply, let's say you could apply for the HR grad program, but also apply for a role at Defence or a role at the ATO or a role at the ABS. You could be lucky enough to get, 2 or 3 letters of offer and have the pick of the litter if you are found suitable through each of those processes. The only point that may become relevant is right at that tail end of things when, we will ask you for the HR grad program to let us know if you are at least at the interview stage or further along for any other process. But that won't rule you out automatically if you progress. We just want to make sure that we are keeping our partner agencies up to date about our candidates. So it would only become relevant right at that final stage of the process in June and July. So by all means, if you think that you've can put a strong case forward to apply for, defence, tax, generalist, HR, fisheries, whatever it might be, and you've got the time to do that, then knock yourself out. Isabel, Megan, you want to add anything else to that?
I would agree. Just for your kind of, whatever you're comfortable doing, do it. It's never going to be assessed negatively against you for applying to multiple things. As Michael said, the reality is most people will. So why disadvantage yourself when other people are doing it? So if you're passionate about something, apply.
Sure.
Sorry, you're right.
I'm sorry. Just wanted to quickly also ask, how will we be notified if we're successful or if we're unsuccessful? Will we be receiving an email or a phone call, like for the next steps after the application?
For the HR program, it's predominantly via email. And then if you are successful all the way through to the end, you will get a phone call from whichever agency that you're matched with to formally make you an offer. But in terms of looking at those other stages in the recruitment process, the primary point of contact will be email.
And I think that's across the board for most streams as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's right. I just wanted to add to the candidates that are applying for streams. I think coming into the public service, it's a really different environment. What I think everyone might benefit from is if you pop onto the APSC website, you can have a look at the way a process is supposed to run, a whole recruitment process. So anything from an APS 1 to 6 we have to stick to some really stringent requirements and guidelines, and we have to make sure all of our processes are what they deem as fair and transparent. So that is publicly available information. So if you are to put your application in to say, and I probably can speak to all the streams, not just the economist stream, but each individual one, your application is assessed against the caliber of candidates in that specific role. So if you were to apply maybe for the ATO stream and then a generalist stream, and then let's say you also have a major in economics and you want to come and work with sort of people like us, then those specific applications, while you might have, I would recommend that you do tailor them specifically to the job you want to apply for. You might be unsuccessful in one and successful for an interview in another, and that's because in that caliber of candidates, your application would be deemed as probably more superior. So don't be disheartened if some you're not successful and some you are, because you are assessed against the people that you're basically also have applied, which may not have applied for your next stream.
Yeah, you're spot on. There's a question about security clearances here that I might just jump on. So security clearances aren't started until you made an offer, and most offers are conditional on you getting your security clearance. So there's no need to worry about that until essentially you get an offer, and then you'll have like a matter of a few weeks to get everything in order and send them off your proof of residency and citizenship and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely not something that you should ever let stop you from applying to any roles in the Australian public service, because every single security clearance case is assessed on a one-to-one basis. So it's assessed by itself, and there's never any blanket rules that are kind of put across everyone. So your case is always going to be considered as itself. Hopefully that helps with security clearances. I know they can be a bit like daunting and nitty gritty, but cool. Glad to hear that answers that. Awesome. Does anyone, I can see there's about 50 of you in the room at the moment. Does anyone have any other questions about Australian government or what kind of hints and tips we can give you? I might get each of the streams to quickly chat about the GPA, if it's important, if you assess it, depending on what stream you're in. So I'll start with the data stream, and I'm gonna jump on and.
Yes, yep, just finding that on me. That's not assessed through the data stream, so that's not important.
Awesome, I love hearing that as someone who didn't get a credit average. Economist stream.
Sorry, Ellie's going to answer this one for you.
Sorry, this was just on the GPA question. Sorry, just complicated that one. I would say, like, yes, it is important, but within saying that, just like all graduate roles, it is a competitive process. So of course, if you do have a high GPA against a candidate who may not have a high GPA, and depending on your selection criteria and how you assessed it, what you've studied, how relevant it is, et cetera, it all gets tied in and how that gets weighted. In terms of the application process, the economist stream, of course, that is something that we'll look at. The candidates who do have a higher GPA is something that we would assess more so at the shortlisting stage, but we've been saying that again, it will also take into consideration the other components of your application. So your written response, your transcript, how relevant it is, any other additional work that you've done outside of that. So all of those things are taken into consideration when an application is assessed. But yeah, just like any grad opportunity, it of course is a part of the application as well. Sorry.
So I'll go for the generalist stream about the GPA. So it was part of the application to start with, but as part of the eligibility, it has been taken out. While, you know, we do look at candidates with a strong and steady, I guess, scores in their transcripts throughout their grades, we certainly don't rule candidates out for not having a grade point average. It is part of our application for you to answer yes or no, because we do understand that some candidates have completed their bachelor degree quite early, and some are doing their masters and PhDs and that kind of thing. So we do ask the question in the application, but you're not shortlisted out, I guess, if that's a right way of saying it, whether or not you do or don't have a credit point average. It's just one of those things that may be looked at through in a holistic view, but you certainly are not shortlisted out just because you have not received those consistent grades.
Awesome. Michael, HR?
It's not really of any consequence with the HR grade program. We don't apply any real rigor. We don't collect that information at any point in the process in regards to grade point average, as long as you have completed your qualification or will complete it this year or within the last 5 years. There's no other decisions made taking your GPA into consideration.
Awesome. And I think that's really a step forward for everyone across graduate industry, public and private, is that we're kind of acknowledging that even if people excel in their degree, there's no kind of guarantee that they'll excel in a team setting either. So everything's being assessed holistically, and there's never going to be one thing that will just cut you completely out, as arbitrary as your marks in university or having a particular kind of internship. That's not the way the industry is going in the next couple of years. I might run through a few of the questions in the chat quickly. Mentors. Do any of the streams that are currently here have mentors and learning and development? Go for it, Michael.
Yes. So for the HR grad program, mentoring can happen in 2 ways at least. So all the HR grads will be formally enrolled in ARI's mentorship program. So ARI, the Australian Human Resources Institute, is the peak body for HR professionals in Australia, and they run a dedicated 8-month mentoring program, roughly from March to November, and all our grads would be automatically enrolled in that at no charge as part of participating in the HR graduate development program, and that would be supplemental to any other existing mentoring with their existing agency. And we're also building an alumni network of the grads that did complete the HR grad program last year and will complete it this year. So we'll have an informal network of your peers who've gone down this road in the last couple of years since we started, that you'll be able to reach out for more, I guess, informal mentoring, as well as those more formalised professional programs.
Awesome. Other streams?
February and March each year.
I can see Economist. There we go.
Just for the Economist stream, we don't currently have anything formal put in place for mentoring. Of course, that's something we'll look at in the future, but currently we don't have anything available.
Yeah, some of our opt-in agencies do, but if you were to come into Treasury, it's more of a request that we would then meet rather than a given.
And I think that's worth clarifying as well. So the process is done centrally, but you end up in a grad program for wherever you're placed. So you may apply to the data stream and end up in the Department of Defence grad program and have some benefits of being a part of the data stream, but you're primarily the defence graduate. So everything that the defence graduate program offers is what you get. So that's why it's worth talking to the particular agencies as well in today's kind of careers fair about what they offer. Nina, last year in total, there were about 7,000 applications for the APS whole of government graduate programs, and that was across the 7 different streams, varying levels across them, depending on how many and all that kind of stuff. Also worth mentioning that there is a STEM stream. I saw someone talk about maths and science earlier. So there is a STEM stream for whole of government as well, which is really cool. And there's a bunch of people opting in for that as well. So I'm just going to keep sticking the link in there so you can all go exploring the actual homepage. And I'm just going to keep this scrolling. English Lit. I love those kinds of degrees, but I'm very biased when it comes to arts degrees.
There was a question about double degrees. Someone said they've got a double degree and didn't specify, what those 2 majors are. So certainly, as long as one of them is HR or HR adjacent, you're more than welcome to apply for the HR program. I can't answer more specifically without knowing, what your double majors are. But I imagine that will be true of all the streams. So as long as one of your qualifications meets the prerequisites, then we'd be more than happy to hear from you. And if both of them meet for 2 different streams, then apply for both those streams to double your chances.
Yeah, exactly. And then we've got a question about special skills or qualities that we look for in a candidate other than their educational background. So I think we did chat about this earlier, but we do have a new raft of people coming through. So maybe we'll go through again what stands out in an application to each of the streams who are here today. I might start and do the exact same spiel I did about 30 minutes ago, but forgive me. What stands out for almost everyone in the public service is being able to articulate why you want to work in the public service and being able to connect your passion for whatever it is that you do to the Australian government service. So if that's been wanting to give back to the Australian people while using your skills and your background, be it that you don't want to work in a for-profit environment anymore, totally up to you. It's just worth being able to articulate that in a selection process. It can really make you stand out from people who just say they want to work for a job to get money so that they can buy their recreational goods or whatever it is. So I think I stole most of what you might have been saying there, Megan, but I'll let you jump in and answer anything that special skills or qualities that would make someone stand out.
Yeah, no, thanks, Isabel. That's about right. Exactly. It's really about telling your story for your motivation and your reasons for wanting to apply for the APS. Being able to link your skills and capabilities back into your application is really important as well. So everything that you've learned through your degree, but also whatever personal experiences or just your life experiences, linking those skills back into what you can give to the APS and to a role within a government department, what your interests are, so to why you would like to work in a particular agency is important as well, to put that down. But I'll also talk about tailoring your application. We have seen over many years that graduates do a bit of a cut and paste. You really need to be careful of that cut and paste. My experience is I have seen a lot of applications of people that have applied for a particular agency that I've worked in, and they'll actually have, I wish to apply for Department of X, Y, and Z. That's not actually the agency that I'm reading the application for. So you've got to be really careful about your cut and paste. Where possible, I know candidates apply for many graduate programs. So you really need to look at the question that's being asked and tailor your response to that application. My experience is that candidates are shortlisted out very quickly, put in that detail of why they're applying for that agency. A stream makes different. I can understand and appreciate that. But that's where if you look at the question that's being asked of you, that's where you should be able to tailor your response to what it is, how you want to respond to that and work through that application question. But definitely just about linking your skills and capabilities to the stream that you're applying for.
Totally. And it's also, we're totally aware that tailoring selection criteria and all that kind of stuff to everywhere that you're applying to can be totally emotionally draining and take a lot of time. So it's worth really connecting and applying to places that you actively want to work at and not kind of shotgunning the approach. And you'd be surprised how many times I've read that someone would like to work at the Australian Federal Police when they're applying for defence, and it does go directly against your desire to work there. So just those little things can make a really big difference.
If you are looking for some reading, I guess, background, because as Isabel has said, the APS is a bit of a funny beast in that we do, have our own language, and it can be a little bit insular if you don't know someone who's already inside the APS circle. There's probably 2 documents which I would steer you towards to help get a broad sense of what is the role of the public service in Australia in the year 2021 and where will it go over the next few years. The first of those is the State of the Service Report. So that's an annual report published by the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, which you can find on apsc.gov.au. I would say it's a bit of a phone book, but most of you probably don't remember what a phone book is because you're not old like me. But it's a lengthy tome. It's a few hundred pages, but there is definitely some extracts at the front of that which will talk about what is the role of the APS, what are the significant programs of work that the APS is looking to deliver on behalf of the Prime Minister and on behalf of the government of the day. The second one is the APS Review Report. So in 2018, 2019, then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull commissioned a review of the APS. It was headed up by former Telstra CEO David Thodey. So it's colloquially known as the Thodey Report or the APS Review. And that is a reasonably detailed assessment of whether the APS is fit for purpose. And this sort of stream recruitment initiative is a direct result of that review. So much of the, reform agenda for the APS will be outlined in that document. And lastly, as Isabel said, research the agencies you want to apply for. For the HR grad program, we'll allow you to nominate 2 or 3 preferred agencies, and we'll ask you to tell us in 200 words or less why that agency is the best agency for you. So have a look at their website, read their annual report, read their, corporate plan, their 5-year plan or whatever, to get a sense for whether the future that organisation plans is going to be the right future for you.
Yeah, spot on, Michael. And it might be a bit of a cheat way of doing it, but you can always Google search the department and your degree and see what comes up in news articles. That's and see what's going on and wherever you want to be. Having said that, you need to tailor your application to wherever you're applying. That includes the streams. So you don't have to answer a single thing for every single agency that's participating in each of those streams. It's about writing about why data in the Australian Public Service is important to you, or why being an economist in the Australian Public Service is important. You don't have to list for every single participating agency until further down the track when you preference exactly where you want to be. And by that point, you'll hopefully know a bit more about each of those departments and what they can offer you as well. So data stream, what makes someone stand out to you?
Yeah, so I think really demonstrating, like I said before, your commitment to data and what you think and why you think it's important and how it can be used, and showing some experience with data definitely sets you apart. I think also using examples that maybe not everyone else has used. We see a lot of examples that talk about like, for example, if you're talking about teamwork, you might use the university example where you worked in a team and no one was contributing, so you took the lead. So while that's a great example, we do see it a lot. So try and think about other experience you might have that could answer that teamwork question, for example. What sets you apart from everyone else? And, it doesn't have to be at university. It could be in your volunteer capacity, or in, like you said before, working at McDonald's and what you've done there. So, but yeah, for the data stream specifically, if you can demonstrate why you're committed to working with data and what excites you about it, that's really what sets you apart and what we want to see. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's what I recommend as well to anyone who's applying. to defence or any of the streams is that the people who are looking over the assessments through each stage have probably seen a fair amount of group activity stuff. If it is your best example of whatever that selection criteria is, 100% write it. But if you have an example that maybe is the same or better, that isn't group work in university, because we've all been there, maybe write about that instead. It's probably going to set you apart and make your application a little bit different from the person before you and the one after you. Economist stream, what makes someone stand out?
So just putting another layer on top of what everyone else has said, we are really interested in what career history you've had to date. So again, it could be a standard takeaway role, it could be a retail job, your part-time job, but also any internships that you have been doing or anything that is relevant to coming into the public service. I think the graduates that are really interested in applying for this particular round for the 2022 intake are in a really good position, because the work environment, as everyone has seen over the past 12 to 18 months, has changed significantly. So we would like to know how you're going to come into the department as well and adapt to that particular style. It's not as simple as 9 to 5, Monday to Friday anymore, and everyone walks in, swipes in, goes home, and that's it. There is a bit of flexibility around the requirements of that, and that is something we would like to see. Most economists across the public service occasionally have to do a little bit of after hours work. So it's that sort of flexibility and approach that I think would be really beneficial. And in addition to that, we are interested in how people will transition into the public service as a whole. So what can you bring that is reflective of the APS values? So whether you're part of an inclusion and diversity committee at university, or whether you do not-for-profit work on the side or something like that, all the departments do have their structure and the way that we do run sort of your core roles like your analyst, your project management roles, etc. But in addition to that, so Treasury, for example, which is where I'm based at the moment, we have quite a range of different committees and diversity groups, and those particular things may be beneficial in some cases, because we are looking for people that, yes, can come in and do their job, but also can come in and contribute to the department as a whole. So I think that's really important.
I also just wanted to add on to that. I think everyone has definitely provided a good response in terms of what a good application looks like. But I think the other thing is, and I would say across the AGGP, is that with graduates, we know that you are smart. You've all just completed a degree, and we understand that kind of have that similar background, but we also want to know what else you can bring outside of that academic experience. So I guess being able to show how you can collaborate with others in those things. So being able to demonstrate, I guess, like the APS values, which some of you can definitely have a look at. I think that will be across the board as well.
100%. And it's definitely the way of the future, looking at how people are as people, as opposed to whatever kind of qualifications are on paper and all that kind of stuff. Really matters that you are driven by the same things that the rest of the public service is, and can align to our values and kind of operate with that bigger sense of purpose to serve the Australian people, like everyone in the public service is doing in some respect. We do have like 15 minutes left of this, so please feel free to ask any and all questions that you have. It's not often that you get to kind of nitpick brains like this, so go for your life.
Hi guys, I had a question, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for your life.
Hi, thanks for the introduction. I kind of just joined in here after being in a couple of workplaces. I just had a question sort of about how some dual applications could work. So for instance, with the generalist stream, obviously things like the Department of Defense and DFAT, they take applicants from that generalist stream. They also take applicants from like directly. I was wondering if you send an application through the DoD or DFAT directly, as well as applying through the generalist stream because you want to, you know, cast your net. How does that work in terms of like which one is sent to DFAT or DoD? Is one going to be the same? Some have different assessment centers. Like which one takes precedence? Which one do they double up? Do you get like two applications? Kind of how does that work? It's a little bit tricky.
So essentially, I am from the Department of Defense and I'm helping run the whole of Gov thing. So essentially what happens is you're doing 2 full application processes, or 3, depending on how many you're applying for. The generalist stream gives you a pathway into multiple different agencies. So by applying through the generalist stream, or the human resources stream, or whatever stream it is that you're looking for, you can be assessed, you're assessed across the whole process for all of the different agencies, and you can be preferenced or offered a job by all of the agencies participating. So essentially, you got something like 20 something or more people who might end up being like, yeah, we really like him, we want him. Whereas applying to the Defence Grad program, you're applying for Defence, you're being assessed by Defence the entire way through, and you'll end up in the Defence Grad program. So it's essentially, there's nothing stopping you from doing both. It's just your time commitment to doing the application for both. In terms of endpoints, up to you what you accept. If you get offered both or 3 different roles, up to you whichever you accept, depending on, you do end up in the same place. So if you're applying for a generalist role through the whole of Gov stream, you would join the Defence Grad program. If you were applying for the Policy and Corporate Pathway in Defence, you end up in the Defence Grad program. So it's the same place, it's just 2 different avenues.
Okay, great. That answers a large portion of my questions, so I really do appreciate that. I was wondering, like, say, for instance, a candidate got to like the advanced stages of like the DoD program, as well as being to the advanced stages through the generalist program. Do they kind of like merge those applications if it's like obviously one person, or it just goes individually?
Just goes.
Okay.
You've committed to doing 2 selection processes, so you're going to do 2 selection processes essentially.
Sure. Great. Yep. Okay, thank you. Cheers.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Megan.
For the economist stream, so basically the same portal does collect the applications, like a lot of the departments that are doing it, but they are 2 separate jobs. So even if you were to look at it as a job, just 2 separate jobs the department's running, I think at the moment we have 2 sort of separate EL2 roles going in different areas. They are obtained separately. The interviews will be held in the same location. They potentially will be on the same timeline, but they will have different committees. So the Treasury specific panels will be Treasury people who are looking for skill sets that we think align to our department, whereas the panels made up for our AGGP rounds will be broad across all of the participating agencies. So those agencies can look for skill sets and attributes that represent their specific agency, because whilst we can do a sort of a fair and transparent process in itself, the nitty gritties of those agencies, we can only know from a high level, not a more in detailed person. It's not uncommon for panels to go, hey, that person, I can see them ultimately fitting into this specific role in that department. So that is something that we have found over the years. So, the panels will run on the same timeline. Potentially, if you have 2 interviews, say for an economist stream and a Treasury stream, you're literally going to go to the same location or the same WebEx context, but your panels will be different and you will be assessed independently.
Yeah, so it's 2 separate processes. You're running the whole thing as separate, and then you get 2 separate offers.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. Was that right, Megan?
Yep, exactly right. And very much the same with with the generalist stream, is that with all the agencies participating, is that it's the beauty that the agencies are able to participate in the assessment process and see the candidates through the whole assessment process. And then they are able to, we moderate with our assessors throughout the whole process. And if there's a particular candidate that they're very interested in, we can continue to look at if that candidate might have a preference for that agency, and then that certainly does align for those preferences and an allocation to that agency. So we look at those options and those possibilities where available, when they work, but generally we also take mostly into consideration our candidates' preferences for the agencies they're interested in as much as possible.
Great, fantastic.
Awesome. We've had a couple questions about master's degrees versus bachelor's degrees and eligibility and all that kind of stuff, consideration against each other. So I might just get Michael to jump on and answer that realm of things for the HR stream, and then we'll take it across to everyone else as well.
Thanks very much. So in regards to, I guess, postgraduate versus undergraduate study, whether that's a master's, or I think we might have even had 1 or 2 PhD candidates apply last year. We don't rank them. So if we have 2 candidates that have comparable backgrounds, and one's got a postgraduate study and the other one has undergraduate study only, we don't automatically consider the person with the master's to be the superior candidate. We will judge those candidates based on their relative merits through the whole selection process. So there's no inherent advantage or disadvantage to having an undergraduate or postgraduate degree, as long as part of that study is relevant to those HR qualifications we've talked about previously. So HR, business management, commerce, psychology, org development, things of that nature. Doesn't matter whether it was an undergraduate or postgraduate degree, we won't give preference to one over the other.
Awesome. And for the rest of the streams, is that the same across the board? Yep, I'm saying nods. Awesome. I know that's the same for most agencies. So everything's a merit basis as long as you meet the eligibility. Anything above that is going to be great, but not preference you in either way. Awesome. So do we have any more questions I can answer? I'm just scrolling up to see if there's anything I've missed.
I do have a quick question, sorry.
Go for it.
So this one's for the generalist stream.
Yep.
I was just wondering, is there like any rotational basis? So we get to work with different departments or anything like that?
So I might quickly just preface this before I get Megan to jump in. Sorry.
Great.
So the process is streamlined. So you do the same thing for all of the different agencies participating, but you do end up in the agency's graduate program. So in most cases, it will depend on what the agency is offering that you end up placed in, as opposed to the stream as a whole. I'll let Megan go into a bit more detail.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Isabel. So at this point in this process, it is that you are, if you're suitable, allocated to an agency, made an offer on their graduate program, you're engaged through their graduate program, through their enterprise agreement terms and conditions. Eventually, the APSC is looking at the next combined sort of model, which might include cross-agency rotations. But at this point, we are certainly looking at single individual agencies from a point of the end of the assessment process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. So 5 minutes, guys, ask away. We'll try and answer anything we can for you before we all have to jump off and run to whatever next Zoom meeting we all have.
Isabel, I just thought I might quickly mention a question came up before about information being provided at the stages and that kind of thing. And I just wanted to say that the generalist stream at each stage, while we do have the candidate information guide, which does provide information to all the candidates about the stages, there is usually more information that comes out at each stage of what it is that you actually need to do. We will also have, if you get to the end of the process, there is also an assessment centre guide, which does talk through each activity. It also gives you a bit of a rundown of the online platform that we use, which is Microsoft Teams. We do a tech session as well to make sure your technology is working. So we'll try to do everything we can to ensure that you get the best experience to be able to demonstrate your skills and capabilities in the best way possible. So hopefully throughout the generalist stream, you are provided with as much information without actually giving you the answers to the questions throughout the whole process.
Yeah, very good point. Transparency comes as you step through each of the processes. We don't want to overload you with a million things that you have to worry about ahead of time. So just focus on whatever the next thing is, be it writing a selection criteria, video testing or psychometric testing, and you will get all the information you need for whatever the next step is as it all comes along, or there'll be a diatribe of all of it on the website that you can deep dive, but you'll definitely know before anything has to be assessed.
I'll definitely add that there's been a few questions in this session, the previous one, about tips for interviews and things like that. Interviews, I think, are very daunting for all of us, regardless of whether it's our first or our 50th. So there is some information. If you Google APS interview guides, Crack the Code on the Defence website in particular is a really good document that talks about how to understand some of the language and terminology and processes that is a bit gov-speaky for people in APS life. So I definitely recommend you to look at that. And then when it gets to your interview stage, we'll give you some more information, as Megan said, about the data, about the generalist stream. So, the tips are reasonably general, but in terms of, APS specific language, that Crack the Code guide produced by Department of Defence is an invaluable resource if you find some of the jargon and language and terminology a bit intimidating.
Yeah, because it can be very weird to hear all the acronyms and all that kind of stuff if you've not worked in the APS or you don't currently work in the Australian government. It can all be a bit much, but believe me, you pick it up in your first 3 months and then it becomes second nature to you. But there are cheat sheets all over the internet to give you those skills ahead of time. Megan, there's just a question about how competitive the general stream is.
Yep, sure. I'm sorry to say, but it is very competitive. We are advertising for a multiple selection of agencies. So we do hope to get the best responses from our candidates as best as possible. That's why I can't stress enough about focusing on the application question and being able to really respond to that and answer that, link your skills and capabilities. It's really about that and giving yourself every opportunity to do as best as you can. Don't leave things to the last minute. Read all the information provided to you. There will not be any extensions on application stage, on video interview stage. We know that personal things happen in our lives, but we also have time frames for these processes. So you really need to be aware of what's coming up, knowing you're going through a whole lot of other grad processes. I suppose get a diary, put a timetable, stick something on your wall, whatever you need to do to know what's coming up so you can get the best out of each opportunity. That's all I can say. It is very competitive, but you perform as best you can and hopefully you can get through.
Yeah, exactly. Put your efforts into what you're really passionate about and it will pay off eventually because it does take emotional labor and a lot of time. So give yourself the best chance you can and apply for stuff that you really care about and will really go that extra mile for. I am so sorry, guys, but we are out of time. I thank you so much for coming and chatting to all of us and hopefully we get to see your applications.